Welcome to Mid-Century Living, your weekly nostalgia podcast about the best of technology and culture from the mid-20th century.
Welcome to episode 30 of Mid-Century Living, the show where we talk all about the mid-20th century and how to add vintage vibes to your modern life. We are hosts, Gonzalo
and Jackie. Thank you for joining us today. So today we're talking about one of the most famous mid-century commercials of all time, Coca-Cola's Hilltop, also known as I'd Like to Buy the World a Coke, from 1971. But first, Gonzalo, can you believe this is our 30th episode?
I cannot. It's unbelievable. I am speechless. I am without speech.
Without speech. I'm suddenly realizing we should have made like a little 30th birthday cake or something for the podcast.
Man, we should have.
How cute would that have been? Maybe we'll say that for our 50th.
Yeah. But also, can it be like an aspic?
Yes.
I feel that's more period.
Yeah, that's more period accurate. That's true.
No, I can't believe it's 30. We're 30 episodes in.
Yeah, we sure are. And it flew by.
I know. And what an episode to talk about, too.
So anyway, now that we're done being sentimental, I guess. How was your week?
My week was good. It's been, let's see. We had a 3-day weekend last weekend because the end of the grading cycle, which was amazing. And it was full of meetings that day that we didn't have students, but we were there at work. But it's been a really nice beginning to the last grading cycle because we only have so many days left. It's almost summertime, which is a teacher's favorite time of the year because it means that in a few weeks' time we get a break. So, no, but it's been good. It's just been busy. It's been a busy week. Lots happening, planning for next year already, and then we had standardized testing.
Do you get to kind of coast during the standardized testing portion of the year, or is that harder?
It's harder because if you are a teacher that teaches different grade levels in one class, then you have some students who leave and some students who are there. And then if you are a teacher who teaches multiple sections of different courses, then you are maybe teaching a class that day. Maybe you're involved in the testing. So maybe you have one class that you'll see and you won't see the rest. So you have to plan around it, which is fine. I get to cover some teachers on my off periods so that they don't fall behind.
Oh, that's
which
nice.
is kind of cool because I don't know those students and they don't know me. So I just teach and not have to worry about behavior really because they don't act up in class if there's a teacher that they don't know.
Oh.
And it's because it happens before all my other classes and it's going to be the same thing that I'm going to teach. It's it's my guinea pig period.
Yeah, you can test out your material.
What jokes work? What jokes don't work?
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, just like a stand-up comic. This is your test.
Yeah.
Test out your material and take some notes. That's funny.
So that was my week. How was yours?
Mine was good. I just remembered that this is our first episode after the eclipse. Last time we were recording, the eclipse hadn't happened yet. And that was super fun. I did not make any fancy cocktails, but the outfit I had bought specially for the occasion was a big hit with the town square I went to. I got lots of compliments on it. I had this cute blouse with suns and moons on it. And everyone realized I was dressed up for Eclipse Day. So that worked out. And then ever since then, honestly, the most interesting thing isn't that interesting, but it does transition nicely into the topic of this episode, is I just finished rewatching Mad Men for the 4th time. I'm pretty sure it's the 4th time, which means that I have watched the series all the way through 5 times now, which is bananas, but worth it, because there's just so many juicy details in there that it actually gets better every time you watch it, and it's really interesting because, characters I hated the first time through, sometimes they've grown on me, and some of them I hate even more now, and it's just anyway, super exciting. I have replaced it with 2 cooking shows to fill that void now that I don't have Mad Men to rewatch. So I'm watching the Spring Baking Championship, which is adorable. And also I've started watching, even though season 3 just came out, a Netflix show called Is It Cake? Have you heard of this one?
Is it the one where they put random things around and you're like, is this an actual iPhone 14 or is it cake?
Yes, that one. Yes, it's the one where it's random objects and one of them is cake. And it is super entertaining. And I actually found it by way of someone I started following on Instagram who was on season 1. So that's the only reason I know that show exists. So I finally started watching season 1 of it, and I've got the finale left to watch, but I've got 2 more seasons, so that's pretty exciting. But anyway, now that we're talking about television, that's a very good transition into the main topic of this episode.
All right, so let's get on with it.
So, as I mentioned before, I picked this topic specifically because it is featured in the last episode of Mad Men, and I just finished my most recent rewatch. So I guess before we get started, Gonzalo, have you ever watched Mad Men?
Okay, don't get mad. I have not.
Yeah.
But I have a pretty good reason for it.
Uh-oh. Because you don't have Apple TV Plus?
I've got 2 good reasons for it. No, okay, I don't have Apple TV Plus. But also, like, I haven't started any new shows in, like, forever, with the exception of Fallout, which came out last weekend. And I only started watching Fallout because Michael Simmons is the art director for it.
Oh.
But I stress out at knowing that there is like seasons plural to watch of something, especially if a show that I want to actually sit and watch, and not like have as background noise.
It is definitely a time commitment, and you need to watch it because even if you just listen to it, you're missing half the show because it's so beautifully curated, and especially as a lover of mid-century, like, you want to look at the costumes, you want to look at the set decoration, like, you want to take it in visually as well. So,
yeah.
I actually have a much better time watching television shows than movies because I'm only committing to 40 minutes at a time. And that is so much easier to schedule than 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
watch a movie. That. So that I've watched a lot of TV shows and not a lot of movies, as we've discovered in our conversation.
And I'm the other way around because I have maybe 2.5 hours a week that I can devote to just like not doing anything but watching the screen. So I'll watch a movie in the evenings on a Saturday.
Yeah, I bounce around a lot. But because you've never seen it, this actually is probably worth saying that the discussion will contain some spoilers for the series finale of Mad Men. So if that's something that you, the listener, are trying to avoid, you may want to skip some parts of this episode. We'll try to put timestamps in the show notes for you, but I honestly don't think that learning the few details I'm about to mention will ruin the experience if you listen to the show before you watch it. The reason why Mad Men is so great is because you're basically following the exact same group of people from 1960 to 1969, and it's really all about their personal growth as they navigate changes in social norms and changes in fashion and changes in attitudes and very significant historical events. So that whole journey will not be ruined by you hearing what we're about to talk about today.
Good.
So it's an excellent show, and I can't recommend it enough. So if you haven't watched it, everyone should watch it. It's fantastic. But now that you've been warned, here come the spoilers. So in the last 5 minutes of Mad Men, Don Draper, our hero, appears to be having a moment of true inner peace. What?
Protagonist?
Yeah. Well, he's an anti-hero, honestly. He's like, it's like saying that Tony Soprano is the hero of The Sopranos. Like, is he? Well, no. But anyway, so Don Draper appears to be having a moment of true inner peace, meditating on a hilltop in California at a wellness retreat. And then suddenly the look of concentration on his face turns into a smile, and we fade to black. Then we fade into the famous Hilltop Coca-Cola ad. It is strongly implied, and was later confirmed by showrunner Matt Weiner, that Don is smiling in the scene because he just came up with the idea for this ad. So we're supposed to kind of fill in the rest on our own. Don returns to McCann and Erickson, somehow gets his job back, and creates probably the most famous Coca-Cola commercial of all time.
But Don Draper's not a real person, so what actually happened? I don't think that a fake person can come up with a commercial, right?
No, and this is actually, fun fact, only like one of 2 real commercials they show in the whole series. I mean, they show a couple print ads that are real, but most of the stuff they invented for the show, like as ads that the advertising agency did. But this one's a real one. But of course, no, Don didn't invent it because he doesn't exist. So according to Coca-Cola's website, credit for the spot, which is officially named Hilltop, goes to Bill Backer, who was the actual creative director on the Coke account at McCann Erickson at the time. So in January 1971, Backer was flying to London to meet with the music director and songwriters on the Coca-Cola account when his plane was forced to land in Ireland. And he observed the following morning that many of the passengers who were really angry the night before because their flight was delayed were laughing together and bonding as they were snacking and drinking Coke. So Backer said, quote, "In that moment, I saw a bottle of Coke in a whole new light. I began to see the familiar words, 'Let's have a Coke,' as more than an invitation to pause for refreshment. They were actually a subtle way of saying, 'Let's keep each other company for a little while.' And I knew they were being said all over the world as I sat there in Ireland. So that was the basic idea, to see Coke not as it originally was designed to be, a liquid refresher, but as a tiny bit of commonality between all peoples, a universally liked formula that would help to keep them company for a few minutes."
Oh, that's nice.
Isn't that nice?
This is very positive.
So when Backer got to London and finally had his meeting, they started writing the jingle right away. So the melody for this song actually originated as a song called True Love and Apple Pie by the same songwriters who were assigned to the Coke account. And then it just took that melody and rewrote all the lyrics to become By the World of Coke. And it was performed by British pop group The New Seekers and recorded at Trident Studios in London.
Quick pause to admire, I guess, how 1970s English, like from England, bands always have like the coolest names.
Yeah, that does sound like a very British fan name.
Yeah.
Song credits, because I haven't said their names yet. The music director was named Billy Davis, and the songwriters were Roger Cook and Roger Greenway.
So to start us off, here's a small clip of the famous jingle to refresh your memory.
I like to teach the world to sing. Sing with me. Perfect harmony. I like to buy the world a Coke and keep it company. It's the real thing. I like to teach the world to sing. In perfect harmony. And I'd like to buy the world a Coke and keep it company. It's the real thing. It's what the world wants today. It's the real thing.
So I think that they really succeeded in turning the idea of sharing a Coke into a positive message of hope and love with this commercial. So it features a multicultural collection of teenagers on top of a hill appearing to sing the song. Some of them were children from embassies in Rome, and others are foreign students going to school in Rome. That's where they filmed it. I should have mentioned that somewhere. Some of the students are wearing their own native costumes, others had to be custom made, which was a project in itself, and they're all holding bottles of Coke with labels from around the world in different languages. By the way, Coke is sold in 130 countries.
Ooh.
The main portion of the commercial, about 40 young people ranging in age from 15 to 19 years are shown, and in the final view, taken from a helicopter, there are 500 students in that shot.
Okay.
That was a pretty big undertaking. The commercial ended with the statement, "On a hilltop in Italy, we assembled young people from all over the world to bring you this message. From Coca-Cola bottlers all over the world, it's the real thing, Coke." So the lip syncing looks so good because the actors were actually singing when the film was made, but that's not the soundtrack you hear. You hear the New Seekers. It took it took several weeks of rehearsals in an auditorium to get the young people to get the timing right, which was especially difficult because many of them only spoke Italian or only spoke languages other than English. Filming was initially supposed to take place on the cliffs of Dover, as the commercial was like incepted in Ireland, but it was scrapped due to rain, and then they moved the production to Rome with a new cast, but then it was delayed because of more rain, and then the shoot, they actually filmed it in the rain, but the footage was deemed unusable, and then they actually had to do a third try, and they finally got the footage they needed on the third try, but the final budget wound up being $250,000 in 70s money.
Wow. That sounds like a lot for a commercial, especially when you factor in the inflation and all that math stuff, because that is almost $2 million in today's money. It is actually $1,927,975.31.
Which is crazy, but then again, I don't actually know how much people spend on commercials these days. But
I know that Super Bowl ads are expensive.
Yes, they sure are.
I don't know what the regular ad, but I feel like this would be more like adapt to a Super Bowl commercial.
Yeah, I mean, the production value for sure. I think it was probably totally worth it. It's one of the most famous commercials ever made.
So the spot was released later that year and was an immediate success. Even at the time, Coca-Cola equated it with other commercial successes, such as its own Pause That Refreshes, the Volkswagen series of the late 1960s, and the humorous Alka-Seltzer commercials.
So consumer response was also great, with hundreds of letters pouring in. Coke said that 90% of the letters received at the time were requesting copies of the lyrics. One teacher wrote in wanting to write a play around the commercial's theme, and a choral director requested the sheet music, and some people also started composing additional stanzas. The song became such a hit that people called radio stations asking them to play it. And then the creators of the song finally eventually just revised it, adding 3 verses and removing product references to create a full-length song appropriate for commercial release. It was re-recorded by both the Hillside Singers and the New Seekers, and both versions became huge hits. But I think even with the references removed, there's no way you can hear the song and not think about Coca-Cola.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I really want Coca-Cola right now.
I think that I find it like genuinely endearing. Like, I think that the ad is beautiful, and like just 5 years earlier, you couldn't have black and white people in a commercial together.
Yeah.
And then here we are in 1971, and it's just like all of these people from all over the world holding this soda with all the labels and all the different languages, and I find it like genuinely heartwarming. But I'm a little softy, I guess.
No. I mean, it's cool because, I mean, when you think about Coca-Cola, you don't, I mean, maybe some people do. The first thing that comes to mind is not, hey, this product is meant to unify or unite people across the world, right? It's meant to be a, hey, I'm thirsty, or it's hot outside refresher, right? But it as time progressed, right? Coca-Cola becomes such a like glue of society, I guess you could say.
It is. And we might actually think of it this way because of the ad, actually, because a lot of people don't realize how international and universal it is until you really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
I actually just got, like, probably they knew I was talking about it, but I've been seeing a lot of ads for really cool, like, Coke merch, like officially licensed brand collabs that have been going around lately. And now after doing all this research, and it has been making me feel really, like, pro Coca-Cola and, like, happy about the world and society, so now I want to go out and buy a t-shirt.
Have you ever been to Coca-Cola World, or whatever it's called, in Atlanta?
I've been to one of the little experiences in Vegas. Like one of the like Coca-Cola shops, and you can take a green screen photo with the polar bear.
I met the polar bear. So I went to Atlanta several years ago for the Peach Bowl, what the Cougars played one year, and it's New Year's Eve. Anyway, because we were in Atlanta, I was like, I'm gonna go to a Coca-Cola. It was either Coca-Cola or CNN, and I wanted to go Coca-Cola.
Good
but
choice.
like as you walk in and you go through the museum and you go into the vault where the Coca-Cola recipe is stored, then they have a bear. Like it's a person in a costume. Obviously, it's not an actual bear, but like
missed opportunity.
I know, but they have like they're not robotic. They're a person, but their hands are robotic. So like their fingers can move and stuff.
Cool.
But anyway, I met him.
Cute. Yeah, the one I went to in Vegas was super fun. I feel like I bought like little Coke bottle shaped salt and pepper shakers, and that was the only souvenir that I bought. But now I want more Coke merch. So that brings us tidily to our connection to today. So it's still considered one of the best ads ever made. In 2007, Campaign magazine called it one of the best loved and most influential ads in TV history. In 2000, Channel 4 and the Sunday Times ranked the song 16th in 100 greatest TV ads. And in 2005, ITV ranked the advertisement 10th in its list of the greatest advertisements of all time.
Wow.
And they actually used this ad over and over again several times. So in 1990, there was a follow-up commercial called Hilltop Reunion, which aired during Super Bowl 24. And it featured the original singers now as adults and their kids, which is adorable.
Oh, that is cool.
In 2005, an artist named G Love remade the song for a new Coca-Cola Zero commercial called Everybody Chill, which I have not listened to, but probably should have as research. They used the song again in a Coca-Cola commercial in 2006 in the Netherlands, but performed by a Dutch singer. And in 2010, they used it again in a commercial featuring the entire line of Coke's sponsored NASCAR drivers. And it included the drivers singing the song while driving in a race.
Oh.
But that brings us back to 2015, which is our Mad Men connection again. So skip ahead to the etiquette segment if you don't want to hear more spoilers or show discussion. So the ad was played in its entirety, except for the ending bit, the text that's like on a hilltop in Italy, in the series finale in Mad Men in 2015. Coke gave the showrunners permission to use the ad, but they didn't pay for the placement and they didn't have any say in the planning of the series finale. A Coca-Cola spokesperson told The Hollywood Reporter, Mad Men is one of the most popular TV shows of all time, and Hilltop is an iconic piece of Coca-Cola history. The finale gave everyone inside and outside the company, some for the first time, a chance to experience the magic of Hilltop within the context of its creation and the times. Which is a very good way to put it, and I love that they just, like, gave it to them out of the goodness of their hearts, which I think keeps with the spirit of the commercial. So I think of it as this, like, actually genuinely optimistic commercial, and so does Mad Men creator Matt Weiner. He actually had this to say, quote, I did hear rumblings of people talking about the ad being corny, and it's a little bit disturbing to me getting back to the sort of cynicism. And I'm not saying that advertising's not corny, but I'm saying that the people who find that ad corny are they're probably experiencing a lot of life that way, and they're missing out on something. The idea that some enlightened state and not just co-option might have created something that is very pure. So I'm actually really glad that I read that quote from Matt Weiner, because Don Draper being who he is, I actually interpreted this as kind of a cynical ending to the series at first. Not because I find the commercial corny at all. I actually think it's sweet and pure, or as sweet and pure as you can get in an ad, but it's just that a few scenes earlier we see Don having this like really true moment of human connection for the first time in the entire series. Like, we've never seen him before, and it looks like he's had some kind of breakthrough, and then when they just cut to this ad at the end, I always thought, like, wow, so after all that, he just goes back to being an ad man and hasn't changed at all. But the thing is, like, upon reflection and research and reading all these quotes, he didn't just go back to New York and make any ad. He made this ad. And if this ad is as pure and wholesome and impactful as we all agree that it is, then of course it would take some enlightened state and an emotional breakthrough for Dawn to come up with that ad and that copy. So I don't think it means, like, I already kind of liked the ending when I thought it was like a cynical ending, just because I kind of also enjoy cynical endings to things. But it actually, I think, can be both. Like, sure, he goes back to being an ad man, but he goes back to being an ad man with this, like, emotional breakthrough in him. So he is, I think, changed for the better at the end of the series. Or at least I think you can interpret it that way.
Cool.
Okay, no more spoilers. Spoilers are over now. So, if you do ever watch the show, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the ending, though.
Okay.
But now, and I'm also curious to see, you can be my, like, guinea pig if knowing this going in ruins it at all. But I really don't think that it will.
I don't think it will.
But anyway, now that we're caught up to the present, it is time for our etiquette segment. So, Gonzalo, what do we have today?
All right. So, because Coke was the topic today, I was thinking something along the lines of a drink. And how do we make Coca-Cola a quote adult beverage?
We add rum?
We add rum. So, although where I come from, you mix Coca-Cola with Fernet, and it's delicious and really bitter, and I cannot recommend it enough. But anyway, today's etiquette tip is not about rum and Coke. No, I'm just kidding. It's not just about it. Today we're going to talk about chapter 33 of Amy Vanderbilt's complete book on etiquette from 1957, titled The Ritual of Drinking. We're going to look at the etiquette of what it was, of what kind of drinks you should serve your guests.
Cool.
Yeah. So if you need help on like the semi-formal and informal dinner parties, our previous episodes cover some of that. But if you're having guests for dinner, Amy says that you should mix only one kind of cocktail and then offer sherry and scotch or bourbon or rye and soda. She also mentions that old fashions are a nuisance to fix for more than 4 or 5 people.
It's cool that she called that out specifically.
The old fashions?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I guess it was like a very popular drink back then too.
Yeah, and they are delicious.
They are delicious.
But I do see what she's saying, because if you like, they're labor intensive compared to like mixing rum and coke or vodka and orange juice. So the safest choice seems to be martinis, because they seem to be relatively inexpensive and more or less foolproof, unless you're me, who screws them up more often than not. Plus, they can be made in advance and kept in a bottle in the refrigerator. And they can be varied or personalized with tiny pearl onion in the glass instead of the olive, or specialty olives like the blue cheese stuffed ones. So while you have one cocktail, different people in your guests can have like personalized or different variations of it.
I love that.
Yeah. Amy goes on to say that they should be dry, never sweet, and that some experts say that they should be stirred in one direction with ice and never shaken. And to that, Amy says, quote, I, with many other women, am enthusiastic about martinis, cannot say whether this is really vital, end quote.
The answer is it is.
Well, back to Vanderbilt's view of drinking with friends. Regarding the what she calls prominently placed home bar, so having a bar that's somewhere that everybody can see, what she says is having a bar with a wide variety of drinks on demand, and a host who can oblige takes away the emphasis from the dinner and puts it on, quote, untastefully on what should be an incidental procedure. And only at large parties should there be more than one kind of cocktail. Esoteric cocktails should be avoided at dinner parties unless the guests have a preference. What she says also about this is, quote, fancy mixed drinks are usually frowned on by men, though beloved by some women, end quote. And if you remember from our, I think 2 episodes ago, we realized that Amy Vanderbilt is pro joking about men.
Yeah, she makes fun of men a lot.
Yes.
But this, I think, is still true. I think more men than not still consider fancy mixed drinks to be like girl drinks.
Which is a shame, because that means that they're missing out on some delicious cocktails.
For sure.
But speaking of cocktails, the standard cocktails are a safe choice. Amy advises to stick to the formula or recipe. Quote, nothing is so horrid as a martini with too much vermouth, or an old-fashioned with too much bitters. A Bacardi or daiquiri that is sickish sweet will kill appetites for the best conceived dinner, end quote. Gin and rum cocktails are preferred in hot weather to whiskey cocktails. Eggnog is a cold weather specialty and not served before dinner. It is an afternoon drink to be served with fruitcake and sweet biscuits. Drinks like rum and cola, Tom Collins, Bishop Bowles, Swizzles, and Juleps are afternoon or evening libations, not appetizers before dinner, rather digestives after dinner. Pre-dinner, Amy suggests martinis, Bacardi, summer daiquiris, whiskey sours, Manhattans, and old fashions, quote, with minimum of garnish for male tastes.
For male tastes. Don't get too fruity with your drinks for the men.
There's a lot more in this chapter about wine as well, but I've never mixed wine with Coca-Cola, although I saw a TikTok this week about doing so, and apparently it tastes really good. Yeah, I made that face too when I saw. The listeners, Jackie made a face. Apparently it's good. I don't know. I say leave wine and leave Coke with liquor. But anyway, what do you think about these rules?
I think that they are practical and helpful, honestly. I feel like this all comes with the assumption that the host is gonna mix all the drinks, because I feel like, I guess a good host would. I'm trying to think, like, in modern times, I feel like most people just sort of leave their liquor out, and people just make whatever they want, which will... But if you're actually having people over for dinner and you're trying to curate the whole evening, it makes sense to only have cocktails that'll not take away from the food. And I also love that she has, and I actually found this in my research, recently when I've been getting into cocktail making about like which cocktails do best in batches and like what you can pre-mix in a pitcher so that you don't have to stand there like a jerk shaking individual cocktails and that's all you're doing all evening. That's a thing now still, so that etiquette I think holds up.
Yeah.
And I agree with her on a lot of the her when to serve, like gin and rum is preferred in hot weather to whiskey cocktails. I like personally consider whiskey like a winter liquor and gin like a summer liquor. But so I guess that's a thing that a lot of people do.
Yeah, I can't drink bourbon poolside.
Yeah, that's not what it's for.
But I found last summer this can drink, and it's like like pre-mixed cocktails. And one was gin. I forgot what it was with, but it was amazing. The only problem is that the 4-pack of can was like way more money than I wanted to spend on just 4 drinks.
I feel like with the exception of the mint julep or like a Kentucky mule, all whiskey cocktails are just more craveable when it's cold out for some reason.
Yeah.
But no, I love all of this, though I actually disagree with her that you can make an old-fashioned with too many bitters. I don't think there's such a thing. I think the limit does not exist. But I love bitters.
Okay. Katie Heron. I don't know. I just like to drink them. But I do agree with her, and I think we should then give this etiquette tip our seal of approval. What do you think?
Yes, I approve.
Awesome. Cool. Well, with that, it looks like we've landed the plane. And thank you guys all for listening today. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to the show and tell a friend.
You can also follow us on Instagram at MCL Podcast. This is the best place to send us feedback and episode suggestions, so send us a DM anytime.
Yep. Thanks for listening, guys, and we will talk to you again next week.
Bye!
Thank you for listening to Mid-Century Living. Please subscribe, tell your friends, and leave a review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram at MCL Podcast. See you next Friday.